almost certainly what they've got is some type of, hey, what we really want you to do is we want you to come in, don't do an assessment, let's land and expand. We have a solution. We want to install our edge device. We'll install our software. It's probably going to be Ignition on the top end. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video that was sent over to us from one of the community members. Actually, a bunch of people actually sent this video over. I'd say maybe 24 members of the community. So I'm going to be responding to that video. And then in a follow-up video, I'm going to be responding to like a blog post on the unified namespace. But for that, so this week, which is the first week of May, I'm actually traveling. I'm out of country in Slovenia all week on site with a client. Myself and 3 other members of the team are doing a post-assessment walkthrough of their manufacturing facility. So this is pre-proof of concept, which ties right into this video I'm going to be reacting to. So there should be 2 videos that come out. Actually, I think we have 3 videos that are going to come out. We have this reaction video. We have the video on Unified Namespace 101, which would be a reaction video to that blog post. And then we have a ChatGPT video that was shot by a couple of the younger members of our team on just basically how they leverage ChatGPT within our organization. And with that, let's do the question. So this was I want to give credit to I didn't get permission to share his name, but the member of our community who sent us a message said, "Hey Walker, I hope everything is good. ChatGPT workshop was awesome. Thank you." Set it out. I just stumbled into a video. I think he has the right approach, but he's saying that a DTMA is a waste of time. And 2 weeks for a proof of concept, is it feasible in your opinion? I assume you know the company. The answer is yes, I do know the company. I'll tell you how I know the company first, and then we'll just go ahead and get into the video. I actually don't know Alex very well. We've talked on the phone a couple of times, and I think we've gone back and forth on a couple of emails. We have no relationship, so that is Corso Systems doesn't talk to us about unified namespace, or I've never had any conversations with Alex about unified namespace, digital transformation, DTMAs. I do know Alex. I think I'm not mistaken. I think he's a chemical engineer from Nevada. And he started his career for an integrator, and then he created an integrator. So my understanding is Alex doesn't have any frontline experience. I do know that he builds great teams of engineers. I have a lot of respect for the teams of engineers that he puts together. But outside of that, I don't really, Corso and my companies, we have no relationship whatsoever. I will say that I do feel like Alex has taken a couple of pot shots passive aggressively in videos in the past. I'd much rather somebody just come straight out and just slam it. So, I have respect for Corso, and I have respect for Alex also as well. So that's the extent of I know the company. I would say the only other thing I know about about Corso is they do like a total remote thing, or at least they did in the past. And, they were one of the integrators that was doing the edge device thing. So creating their own internal digital thread. But I suspect that the 3 high ROI, low-cost 2-week digital transformation strategies are going to tie into some type of appliance or whatever that they probably offer. With that, let's go ahead and get into the video.
Hey everybody, this is Alex from Corso Systems. Today I'm going to talk about why I think digital transformation assessments are a waste of money, and 3 things that you can do to see an ROI in about 2 weeks and after spending about $10,000. Now,
I'm interested in hearing why he thinks assessment is a waste of money. When it looks at where does digital transformation start, digital transformation starts actually in 3 places. I'm going to show you at the end. I'm going to kind of walk through a general presentation that I always do, that I've showed a bunch of times, that kind of explains why it's so important to start digital transformation with the where am I, okay?
I picked 2 weeks because that is a common duration for agile software development sprints. That is a period of time where you can build a feature or a small product. You can release that at the end of the 2 weeks and have something your users can use. Once they're using it, they can start to provide feedback and you can start to iterate and improve on that. Now, agile has been proven in the software industry for decades to help people build things efficiently, on schedule, and under budget. If this is a great way to deal with the software development process, and digital transformation is a lot of software development, why are manufacturing companies not using this approach to digital transformation?
So a couple of things. I'll talk about video content. So just some general feedback on video content. So if we look down here, if you're asking for my feedback on the video, so the title is "Don't Waste $500,000+ in 6 months on a consultant strategy when you can get started with a small digital transformation project right now. In the process of completing the first project, you'll get the buy-in from your people, a quick ROI, and the insights you really need to move forward. Corso Systems can help you." Yeah, never do that. So this is what most people in our industry don't understand. So that is the call to action. That's the ABC, always be closing, right? So that's the asking for the sale piece right here, but to non-specific. When you're doing digital media, no one wants to watch a commercial. So the reason this video has got 64 views in 12 days is because no one wants to watch a commercial. No one shares a commercial. If you look at our metrics, the number of shares that we get across our videos is very, very significant. A huge number of people share the videos. And I think the argument, and what I try to teach other integrators and people in the industry when they come and consult with us is, you should ask yourself 4 questions when you're shooting any type of content. Number 1, why should anyone listen to me? Number 2, what am I going to say? Number 3, what is the audience going to hear? I think just based on the messages I got about, definitely more than a dozen messages asking me to review this video. The feedback was what the audience heard was don't do an assessment and you can do a proof of concept in 2 weeks. Okay. Now, if that was the goal of the video, then it was successful. But I don't think that was obviously the goal of the video. The goal of the video was let Corso Systems help you start digital transformation with you. That was the goal. And that's the call to action at the end of the description there. Hey, let's go. By the way, 2 weeks on Agile, totally agree.
And instead spending a lot of time dealing with McKinsey and Deloitte to do these digital transformation assessments, give you a top 10 hit list and a bunch of deliverables of things that you could or should implement and a path forward where you still at the end have to go do the implementation of things, find vendors, and go through all of the work of doing that.
Totally agree with Alex on this piece. We work alongside Deloitte quite a bit. We come behind Deloitte quite a bit. We come behind Capgemini, Wipro, McKinsey. Eventually what happens is when someone's dissatisfied, when they're dissatisfied with a big consultant firm or even a smaller integrator, they're trying to look for a solution. They end up Googling or going online and they find us. They watch our videos. They kind of see what our attitude is and all the red flags that we point out, like look out for people who are saying this and look out for people who are approaching solving your problems like that. And they go, wow, that's literally who we just walked away from. And they call us, we come in and we fix the problem for them. Totally agree with Alex on this piece. The McKinsey Deloitte approach is generally basically you're spending $1 million a month, $100,000 to $1 million a month for consultants to basically do a comprehensive lay of the land. They put a list of projects in a document. That document is basically boilerplate. If you look at what Deloitte writes for customer A and what they write for customer B, it's 99% congruent. We've done the diffs on the actual files themselves many times. It is very, very congruent. It's a list of projects. That's all it is. There's nothing in there about strategy. There's nothing in there about technology. There's nothing in there about enterprise architecture. So many of the key decisions are punted. The foundational decisions are punted. So I totally agree with Alex on this piece.
Why are companies not taking advantage of this already and just doing something upfront to go through the learning experience of implementing something related to digital transformation?
So he's asking the question, why aren't companies doing this? And the answer is because they don't know where to start. How do you find out where to start? You start by identifying your problems. Two types of problems. What are the problems I'm aware of, and what are the problems I'm not aware of? And that's why you have to go through an assessment. Should you go through a 6-month assessment with McKinsey or Deloitte? Of course not. Your digital transformation and maturity assessment should be somewhere between 1 and 3 weeks. Okay, you should touch all of the 5 key groups. You should ascertain what people are good at, what they're bad at, what's missing, and then you should ask them what their major problems are. Also, you're getting the lay of the land, and you're educating them during that process about what to expect with digital transformation. And I'll go over that presentation here at the end of the video.
I think people spend a lot of money, 50, 60, 100, $500,000 assessments, depending on the size of your company.
First off, you're never spending $50, $60, or $100,000 with Deloitte or McKinsey. You're spending in the millions. You're spending, that's starting at $500,000 and going into the multi-million-dollar assessment. A digital transformation maturity assessment should cost you no more than the biggest DTMA that we've ever done was for the second largest automotive manufacturer in the world. It was for their entire North American operations. We assessed the entire operation from ERP and ERP management all the way through material handling, all the way down to manufacturing execution, process control on the plant floor, data acquisition back up into the cloud. That entire assessment, we assessed the entire North American operation for less than $40,000 in 3 weeks. All totally done in 3 weeks and less than $40,000. And then the proof of concept started in their plant of the future.
Why are people spending money on these rather than doing digital transformation?
They're spending money on the assessments because they don't know where to start. So again, if you were to look at when we started shooting content, I've been in manufacturing now since 1999, right? So I started the first half of my career working for the end user, right? So I did mining, and then I went to the printing industry, and then I went to tier 1 automotive, or I went to steel, and then I went to tier 1 automotive. Then I worked for 2 world-class integrators, and then I started my first integration firm in 2015. After I led the project that built the largest standalone supervisory control and data acquisition system ever built in the world using the unified namespace, the concept of the unified namespace, which we'll talk about in the next video. I learned something when we started doing digital transformation, like in 2012, when we really started doing digital transformation in 2012 for the integrators I was working with. So if you looked at the companies that I was working with, like I was working with Starbucks and I was working with, Frito-Lay and, working for, the largest manufacturers in the world. When you looked at why their digital transformation initiatives were failing, it was really only one of 3 reasons. Either they started out with the wrong strategy or no strategy at all. That is digital strategy. They had no plan they had no reason for why they wanted to be a digital company. So you can't do a proof of concept if you don't know the reason why digital matters. You're literally wasting your money. What you're doing is you're having somebody tell you what they think you should do. Here's the problem. They don't know your business. Guess who does know your business? The people on the plant floor. Okay?
I think, honestly, the reason is that they're scared. Just like operators on the plant floor who are afraid of automation and robotics stealing their jobs, executives in management are afraid digital transformation is going to expose inefficiencies of their business, the ways that they have failed the company in optimizing and innovating how they do business, and they're worried they're going to be replaced if digital transformation comes in and does their job better.
Yeah, I would say I don't agree with that piece. I would say I agree middle managers, definitely. I would say as high as the director level, you are definitely, I've told this famous story about, I've gotten so many directors and officers fired, CTOs definitely. But that's because of their security strategy. I would say executives are not afraid. Executives get it in general. They may not know why they may not know why digital transformation is important, but they know it's important. They're not afraid of it. What they're afraid of is spending money on no return. That's what they're afraid of. They're not afraid of being exposed. Middle managers, absolutely. There's a really common example of, we were working for a tier 1 automotive supplier that was part of a vertically integrated automotive manufacturer. And so the manufacturer they were selling most of their parts to had a 30% stake in them, right? And when we originally started calculating OEE on one of their production lines, one of their most important production lines, biggest bottleneck in their facility, they had been calculating OEE on paper at like 82% because that was where their bonus came from. We started calculating it on the worst performing production line was 25%, but the average was in the low 40s. The director of operations who was in charge of that area, he absolutely swore up and down that our data was wrong. Now, he ended up getting fired because at the end of the day, he knew the data was wrong. We didn't reveal something to him. He knew that their OEE number was actually in the 40s, and they discovered that he knew it, and he had been pencil whipping it for the bonus. But everyone else in the organization, the only thing that they really cared about was the impact those numbers on the dashboards would have on them when the executives walk through. So you know what we offered? And we solved their problem. Let's create 2 sets of dashboards, all right? Instead of fudging the numbers, why don't we have 2 sets of dashboards? Let's give you the ability to flip a switch and make the dashboards look pretty. If you really need pretty dashboards for executives when they walk through that one time every quarter, let's give you the pretty dashboards, okay? Flip a switch, the numbers look great, okay? Turn the switch off and use the real numbers to drive optimization in your business. But I would say Alex is definitely right here in the middle level, director level, manager level. I would say, yeah, they're definitely afraid of being exposed.
Then they can. And this ties into the main reason a lot of digital transformation projects fail, and that is a lack of culture shift alongside the digital transformation itself.
Digital transformation fails for wrong strategy, wrong technology, wrong partners. That's the only 3 reasons it fails. Is buy-in important? Absolutely. Does culture need to shift? Absolutely. But one of my mentors, and when I actually worked in manufacturing in the old days, we used to do these engagement surveys every year. So for the first half of my career working for the manufacturer, we used to do these engagement surveys. And, I worked for some of the largest manufacturers in the world, and they'd send out these engagement surveys to take the temperature of the frontline rank and file employee. And communication was always one of the worst scoring categories in our engagement survey. And those of you who work for the end user know full well exactly what I'm talking about, that if you're doing engagement surveys with your employer, you know that your communication is always one of your lowest ranking categories. There was a mentor of mine told me when we were trying to shift the culture in the organization, we were trying to do it dual prong. A, we wanted to become more transparent, and B, we wanted to become more safe. We wanted to make safety not a bad word. We wanted to make it a condition of employment, like a focus. And the first thing that you have to do in order to change culture is you have to change climate. The first thing you have to do is change climate. So that is, the climate is what we're focused on. It's what we're exposed to all day long. It's the day-to-day experience all day long, okay? In the digital transformation world, changing the climate is being digital. That is a primary focus on the digital acquisition of data, as opposed to through human beings. Human beings are terrible at collecting data. If you get 60% fidelity from manually collected data points from human beings, that's world class. You're looking at 5 nines of fidelity on digitally collected data, even greater than 5 nines, okay? But at the end of the day, if what you want to do is shift culture, you have to focus on climate first, okay? But that is not a reason digital transformation fails. The climate doesn't shift because digital transformation failed, because you didn't solve the actual problem. And you define the actual problem by assessing organizations.
If you're trying to digitally transform your company and you're not changing the culture, you're simply doing business in the same way you are today without changing how you're doing business, and you're going to get the same results because the people are going to revert back to the same processes and procedures and technologies they do today. We see this all the time.
If you don't solve their problem, they're going to go, if you don't make their job easier and they don't benefit from the technology you put in place, then they're going to go back to doing the way they've always done it.
If somebody comes in and they have their digital transformation report ready to go and they are choosing vendors and they don't have buy-in from their staff and they haven't done the culture shift, you'll see where the production schedule becomes the backbone of a digital transformation. And the production schedulers don't want to use the new technology because maybe they weren't consulted properly or their ideas weren't heard as part of this process. We see this time and again. That's where digital transformation is also a lot of work on the leadership side. The leaders of the company need to buy into this. They need to get the people doing the work.
It's not a lot of work on the leadership side. Leadership has 2 roles in digital transformation and in 2 roles only. Number 1, they define the digital strategy, the why we want to be a digital company, the plan for making data our primary commodity, the plan for plugging into a digital supply chain, that strategy, the 3-sentence statement of why we are going to be a digital company, okay? That comes from leadership. And number 2, enablement. That's it. Leaders need to get the fuck out of the way, okay? Leaders define the strategy and then they enable. If you look at digital transformation initiatives that fail, they fail because organizations are missing 2 things, transformative and disruptive leadership. But the transformative leadership and the disruptive leadership are focused on only 2 things, strategy and enablement. Digital transformation happens from the ground floor up. Everybody on the people on the front line of your organization, your frontline supervisors, your general managers, your operators, they know what your problems are, okay? Step 1 in digital transformation is becoming a smart business. Okay? And you do that through digital strategy, architecture, technology, and enabling people to leverage that foundation to solve your organization's problems.
And working at these companies to buy into it from the top floor to the shop floor. Even the operators need to be involved. Now I'm going to bash the McKinseys and the Deloittes over plenty of videos, I'm sure, because I don't agree with their approach. How would I do it differently? How would I put my money where my mouth is? So my thought is going through learning anything. You could go through and read all the textbooks in the world. You could go get a degree in something. You can get a doctorate in something and understand the theory behind it. And like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I'm all about going and getting punched in the mouth right away. Let's go do something, go through the process. Let's start with something small. Let's fail fast. Let's understand what went wrong. Let's grow and let's do it again and do it better the next time.
That's a terrible plan. I do like jumping in. I like the idea of jumping in, but you shouldn't go in with the focus of failing fast. What you really want to do is you want to go in succeeding in the areas where you know you will succeed. And how do you define that? By identifying what the problem is that they have, identifying a problem they don't know they have, defining a strategy for them, putting in an architecture and a technological infrastructure that solves both, okay? You solve both problems in the proof of concept. A proof of concept, I'll go ahead and just answer the question. Should a proof of concept take 2 weeks? No, it should not take 2 weeks. In general, a proof of concept should run somewhere between 6 and 10 weeks and should cost you somewhere between $25,000 and $40,000 in our experience. If you're spending more than $40,000 on your proof of concept, you've bitten off way more than you can chew. If you're spending $10,000 on your proof of concept, then what you're getting is the last thing that they did for the previous customer, okay? Because the only way for you to do, by the way, $10,000 is essentially 1 week, 1 engineer, okay? So that's 1 man week. He's saying 2 weeks, $10,000. That means you got half velocity week 1, half velocity week 2 for your engineer. And the only way that you can do that is by doing something you've already done a bunch of times. And the solution needs to be a function of the actual problem. And guess what? Not every manufacturer has the same problem.
That's how I've approached everything with Corso Systems. That's how I approach working with successful digital transformation projects. And that's what I'm here today to share with you. Now, you're going to learn a lot doing a project, whether you do the project first or whether you do the project after you've gone through 6 months or a year of working with a consultant to get this deliverable of this.
And you should definitely not take 6 months to a year working with a consultant to get some big, huge 100-page document. Your DTMA your digital transformation maturity assessment should be somewhere between 20 and 40 pages long. It should be specific to your business. It should outline where you stand, where you want to go, how to get there, where to start, including the architecture. You're going to implement this foundational architecture upon which you're going to iterate. I like the fact that Alex used the term iterate early in the video.
This digital transformation assessment in your hands. So my thought is don't spend that money up front. Do something small. There's plenty of information about digital transformation initiatives you can do really quickly and easily and start that learning process and get a huge start on the culture shift because you're getting buy-in from everybody along the way and building something small that gives them a little bit of an improvement on their day-to-day life without having to fully upend how they do business. And a year from now, after you've fully implemented a lot of these things, your company will look a lot different than it does today. Your processes and procedures will look very different. But if you're trying to do that all at once, it's going to be a lot harder. So the three things, and you can pick any one of these depending on your company, and there's probably more out there. We're just picking three. The three things you can implement in about 2 weeks with some upfront work before you start working with somebody or you start the actual implementation, and probably spending about $10,000 in some labor and software licensing. The three things that you can implement for a 10-day, 10K ROI are OEE, production scheduling, and production dashboards. Now, I'm not saying we're doing OEE for an entire enterprise across hundreds of production lines across multiple facilities. Let's start with a piece of equipment or one production line with a handful of pieces of.
All right, so here's what he's proposing. So what he has is a solution. Okay, so he's got a solution that already has pre-made dashboards. He has a solution that already has pre-made production scheduling. Okay, there's going to be some hooks in that solution. There's also going to be an edge device. So there will be some type of appliance that they're going to put on a piece of equipment that's going to do data abstraction. What they're going to do is be highly selective about the machine that they picked or the asset or the group of assets they're going to select to do this on, because they're going to want to make sure that they can do a couple of things, not the least of which is identify actual state. Okay, so does the machine itself that we're going to try and do this integration on, does it contain the status information we need in order for us, because you basically have to collect 4 data points to calculate OEE. Let's start with the OEE piece. Number one, you got to have state, you got to have raw material in, you have to have finished goods out, and you have to have waste. Okay. Now, as long as you have 2 of the count numbers, you can abstract the third one. Okay. So you can always, if I don't have raw material in, I can take good parts out plus waste equals what I brought in. Okay. In vice versa. Okay. So almost certainly what they've got is some type of, hey, what we really want you to do is we want you to come in, don't do an assessment. Let's land and expand. What the model is, land and expand. Let's bring your solution in. We have a solution. We want to install our edge device. We'll install our software. It's probably going to be Ignition on the top end. They might even use, I see he's got a Groove Epic there. Maybe the edge device is actually Groove Epic, but there's no way you do that for 10 grand cost-wise. So you might have Ignition Edge on the edge, but there's a solution to that they're proposing, and it is a pre-made solution that probably has some configuration, customization, optimization in this three high ROI, low cost solutions. It's and by the way, not a bad approach. Not a bad approach as long as it's in service of an existing strategy. If you do your proof of concept, we have a standard here at all my companies, but at 4.0 Solutions, what we teach all the integrators that we work with. So we have many partner integrators who, after the DTMA, partner integrators are the ones who do the actual solutions, right? And that includes Intellic Integration, which is one of our partner integrators. Corso is not one of our partners. Corso uses a lot of the language we teach about, but Alex and I have no relationship. So I don't know where he's using, he hasn't defined what digital transformation is. So we may be using different definitions of digital transformation as well. But what I will say is that if what you're doing is doing a proof of concept without strategy, without architecture or minimum technical requirements, that is, these are the rules for the smart things in our business, then you are wasting your fucking money. You're literally creating technical debt. Unless, of course, what Alex is proposing here, and I don't want to bash Alex here. I respect Alex. So, but unless what Alex is proposing here is I already have your solution, and the first part of the thread that's going to be your long-term solution in your business is this thing I'm going to do in your POC. And so what he's saying is I already know what your strategy should be. I already know what your technology should be, and I already know what your minimum technical requirements should be.
Equipment. Let's understand the process flow. Let's understand when machines can be starved or blocked or when there's maintenance issues. And also the upfront work for OEE is understanding your downtime reasons. In addition to downtime reasons, you also want to understand your design throughput for your line and your equipment. If you have a good quality system, we can implement that. If not, we can leave that alone for now and save that for another phase. That's not going to give you a huge impact to your ability to see an ROI on an OEE system. So upfront, do some work to understand your downtime reasons, understand your production line makeup, and understand your process flow, and work with a vendor or do internal work to implement OEE in something like Ignition. And you're basically tracking downtime and throughput at this point. If you have really good
my recommendation is, by the way, for those who are doing digital transformation, my recommendation is really quite simple, which is we recommend that integrators work with the end user. So, and our integrator partners are required. We do not support the concept of go deep, stay long. So that is the idea that the integrator is going to become the engineering arm of the end user. No. The integrator is the brain surgeon who is solving a very specific problem over a short period of time and then phasing out and moving into a support role and an architectural role. That is what an Industry 4.0 and now Industry 5.0 integrator is, okay? But you should be working with the end user. That is training them up, identifying resources internally who can become part of their digital transformation team and take over and own. You will not have successful digital transformation unless and he talks about culture here early on, unless the organization is the one who owns the digital infrastructure. Like you don't sublease, you don't sub out your digital infrastructure. I mean, not and expect to be a successful digital organization.
Good downtime reasons that are detailed, awesome. You're going to see an ROI even quicker. If it's only a reason is that it's stopped or it's running and we need to implement more reasons as we go, that will still at least give you the understanding of when the machine is down and when it's running. And the way you get an ROI is you start to reduce downtime. Even if you reduce downtime by 30 seconds or a minute, you will start to see an improvement on your bottom line because you're producing more product without spending any additional money on hardware, staff, or anything. You're just simply making your machine work more efficiently. The next tool, and this can come right after OEE very easily too, is production scheduling. Now, where you see the ROI on this is if you are not missing orders because you are making them to the schedule and you're finding inefficiencies where the schedule slips either due to operator error, supply chain issues, or whatnot. The ROI on this is if you...
All right, so let's take a look here. Interesting approach here. So there is an MES backend here. It looks like Corso just has a MES platform is what they've got here. I mean, I've seen this type of approach. In fact, I know a couple of the developers who work at Corso very well, and I know that a couple of those developers were integral in developing what it is you're looking at right here, actually. But yeah, this is what I would say is, in general, this is a really good approach. Even from a technical perspective, if you look at the containerization, those are all containered objects that could, in fact, and should be operational namespaces, which we will talk about in the unified namespace video.
Are not missing orders because you are making them to the schedule and you're finding inefficiencies where the schedule slips either due to operator error, supply chain issues, or whatnot. Or you can start to see where inefficiencies in your process lie. For example, our case study on Blommer chocolate. If they're going to go from making milk chocolate to dark chocolate on the production line, they have to do an allergen flush. If your production scheduler isn't thinking about this, you could be running milk and then dark and milk and dark and milk and dark all day long, having to add an allergen flush each time. If you understand your production schedule and you have tools to properly implement that and track how that's being run on the plant floor, you could run milk chocolate for an entire shift, do one allergen flush between shifts, and run dark chocolate for the second shift. And that will immediately give you an ROI by allowing you to produce more on your existing equipment.
So what I would say here is that's not the role of the scheduler. That's the role of the data analyst. He's on the right path here, but that's the role of the data analyst. The data analyst is the one who is looking for the patterns, and later on, after data analyst, it becomes machine learning. I mean, once you get 18 to 24 months in, what you're doing is you're assuming that you're leveraging a unified namespace, which gives you structure of the business, semantic hierarchy, and all of the events. Semantic hierarchy is essentially our entity relational diagram. It's essentially the relationship between all the events in the business. The moment you can do that, you can use machine learning to identify patterns in that data that you can't see with the naked eye. For example, what he's talking about here is a concept we talk about all the time, which is the thing that most organizations are missing is, let's say I have to do production runs of product A, product B, product C, okay? And as a scheduler, I have no insight into the changeover time between A and B and B and C. I also have no insight into the changeover time when I go from A to C or C to B. What we do is we use digital tools to analyze those changeover times based on digital events, rising edge and falling edge of the changeover. What he's talking about here is being able to optimize the order in which we schedule our operations as a function of the things that we don't normally look at, like actual changeover time. There's always a plan for how long a changeover should take, but if you look on paper, most organizations, that's just a number they pulled out of their butt. So he's right in that piece. What I would say is that's not necessarily that's not the scheduler's job, that's the data analyst's job, and then later on it's machine learning. So 18 months into your 18 months into your digital transformation journey, it's machine learning that is telling you don't run A, B, and C, run A, C, B, or run A, then B, 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 B.
And all we're doing there is we're replacing some paper production schedules or an Excel schedule with something that's integrated with your SCADA system so the operators can see the real-time schedule on the plant floor. Finally, you could probably do this with the data and information you have now, if you have any automation at all, is production dashboards. And tying these into the list after OEE and production scheduling gives you even more opportunity for ROI. Part of the power of production dashboards is if you have multiple shifts, you can start to get the shifts to compete with one another. So maybe first shift has a really great day and they produce 120% of what they were scheduled to do that day. Shift 2 or shift 3 doesn't want to be bested by them, and they're going to hustle to try and either meet or exceed the score of shift 1. The way that this layers on top of production scheduling and OEE is if the operators who are running the equipment see efficiencies in the schedule that the production scheduler didn't see, they can run that up the chain. The production schedule can get updated, and they can maybe run an additional batch through the line that day.
To this last part,
if they're starting to see a lot of downtime. The other piece I find is a problem doing these digital transformation assessments is if you have this report that you spent $500,000 on and 6 months of your life dealing with, and you have to show some sort of ROI on that, it's going to be really hard if what you learned about how you do business and how you need to shift your culture and what you need to do to become a digitally transformed company, if that contradicts that report, you have a sunk cost, and that is going to cause you a lot of headaches trying to go against this report.
All right, so I think I've seen enough of it. All right, so let me answer the questions from the community. So let me go back to full screen camera. Camera and right screen. All right, so let me go ahead and answer the question. So most of the questions was, what do you think about this video? What do you think about the prospect that you shouldn't do a digital transformation maturity? That is, you should do no assessment. You should just jump in and fail as quickly as you possibly can. Obviously, that's a horrible fucking idea. That being said, I'll come back to the DTMA piece here in a second. There are many things that Alex says in this video that I agree with, okay? And especially in terms of the places where most digital transformation journeys start, that is the proof of concept, he's spot on. I mean, that's one, the three items that he talks about there, where he talks about, let's calculate OEE and basically let's find out where we are in terms of overall equipment effectiveness. Are we even running remotely close to where we think we should in terms of overall efficiency? Number 2, let's optimize our scheduling and let's compare where we are relative to where we think we should be. Where are we relative to plan? And third, let's create dashboards to, as he likes to say, create a competitive environment between operators. There's a piece that he's missing here that is actually the most important piece of that initial proof of concept. And this goes to the unified namespace piece. And there's a blog post that they also did on the unified namespace called Unified Namespace 101. I suspect it's going to be partially right. I haven't read it yet. But since Alex and I have never spoken, and I'm the one who came up with the concept, the whole architecture of unified namespace as you see it, whether it's with using Ignition frameworks or whether it's in digital transformation, that's what I've been doing. The first one was built in 2005 using dynamic data exchange in a salt mine. So he and I have never had a conversation about unified namespace. And in fact, he did create a video, a couple of years ago where he actually spoke against the unified namespace, saying that it's not scalable. A video where it was like an overhead camera and he was drawn on a piece of paper. So I suspect there will be parts of that blog post that I agree with and parts that I don't agree with. What I will say is what he is talking about in terms of where these journeys start is spot on, except If you don't know why it is you want to be a digital company, don't spend any money. Let me say this again. Don't spend any money. Let me say this one other thing. I watched that video, okay? And the video comes across more, it is informative. There are informative elements in there. I certainly would, that's not a video I would share and say, here's how you can learn about where digital transformation starts. I wouldn't say that. What I would probably do is cut out the snippet of the examples. Okay, here's an example of what we did in a proof of concept. Here's an example of what we did dashboard-wise, and here's what we did with scheduling. Okay, here are three. I would probably cut that piece out. I would cut all the beginning stuff out because it's not correct. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and lay out why it's not correct. You should absolutely do an assessment. What I would say is this: it looks to me in that video, when I look at that video, there's this, $10,000, 10 days. Okay. And they don't do a lot of content. So it sounds to me like what they're trying to do is, hey, people got money to spend $10,000 on us. Let's land and expand in your organization. And let's try to add 6 or 8 new clients. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay. I would feel much better. And I think this is, if I were running Corso, and I don't, there are many times where we do the proof of concept for no money. I pay for everything. And the only condition is if the client decides that after we've done the assessment, we have a digital strategy, architecture, minimum technical requirements. This is why we want to be a digital company, and this is the infrastructure upon which we're going to become a digital company. And we pick the proof of concept. There are many times where that proof of concept, we're paying for it. That is my, Intellic Integration is. And by the way, I don't work at Intellic Integration. I work at 4.0 Solutions. I have nothing to do with the day-to-day operations at Intellic, but I do set the strategy, the overall strategy for the company. There are many times where I pay for the proof of concept. And he said the concept of, put your money where your mouth is. And maybe he says it later in the video that maybe he pays that $10,000. I don't know. But what I will say is that's what you should be doing. I mean, not Corso. That's what integrators should be doing. You should be paying for the proof of concept. And by the way, as a manufacturer, if the commitment is very low, it's a very low commitment, then you should be asking the integrator to meet you halfway. If a proof of concept is going to be $100,000, let's say the client already has a list of requirements and there's no way to keep the requirements this small, then obviously firms can't work for free. But we do lots of examples where we're paying for the proof of concept up front, and the deal is if you like it, you buy it, we scale. If not, we move on. But we certainly never do that without a digital strategy, minimum technical requirements, and architecture. And you can only get that through an assessment. Why? Here we go. Why do manufacturers want to become digital companies? Okay. The answer is they're trying to achieve the Holy Grail. Okay. And the answer, what is the Holy Grail of manufacturing? It's everything and everyone's plugged into a network. All of the layers of the business are integrated together and operate based on data and information from all of the other layers in real time. Stakeholders know the state of the business in real time, that not just the state of a manufacturing operation. And I'll say one of the things that really stood out there in this video is that is very process focused, very manufacturing focused, not business focused. Okay. And it needs to be both. All right. Number 2, if you know the current state and you're digital, well, then you can predict the future state of the business. And this is what everyone wants to do. This is what Tesla does. This is what Amazon does. Amazon gets shit to you in 48 hours or less, to 99% of all Americans in 48 hours or less, because they predict what you're going to buy 60 days before you buy it. Why? Because they're tracking current state 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And by tracking current state digitally and then laying machine learning to do pattern matching on top of that, they can find patterns in data that we can't see with the naked eye, and they predict the future. They look for markers. It's the same thing day traders do. It's the same thing that all the machine learning algorithms do for like swing traders, for example. It's the exact same algorithms, the exact same concept. Okay. Number 5, you leverage technology to collect and analyze data and information. Machine learning predicts the future outcome based on past patterns and current state. AI recommends the operational adjustments, and stakeholders execute. That is the Holy Grail, okay? What Alex talked about in his video there, he talked about this piece, getting you to current state. He didn't talk about integrating all the layers, and he didn't talk about everyone plugged in the network. But if you get this current state, then you're in a place, and you scale, you're in a place where you can start predicting the future state. So in terms of the starting point, That is from a proof of concept. I don't disagree with Alex, okay? But there is a very important point here, okay? And that is this, okay? Everything starts here. He's saying start here with your first iteration. He's saying start here. And that is putting the cart before the horse. You must start here. You must inventory the business. You must inventory the intelligence. You must connect the intelligence to the network. Because this is digital transformation. It's a strategy. It's not a project. He's proposing that digital transformation starts with a project. It doesn't. It starts with education. It's a transformation of the way a manufacturer operates their business, and it starts with admitting there's a problem. How does an organization admit there's a problem if you don't first have a discussion? Okay? So what does the DTMA process look like? Actually, let's do steps and keys. Let me look here. There are some very important basic rules about digital transformation. Right here. There is a foundational rule in digital transformation for successful organizations. If you look at all the organizations we've worked with, all the successful digital transformation initiatives, and if you look at any of the failures out there, it comes down to one of these 6 elements. Okay, so number 1, you don't do anything until you know what your digital strategy is. The digital strategy is defined in the DTMA. Why? There's 10 pillars, the Industry 4.0 pillars. Okay, there are 10 pillars. You need to be scored on a scale of 1 to 5 across all 10 of those pillars. Those are the 10 foundational pillars that hold up your digital transformation initiative. The first thing you want to do is you want to know which one of the pillars are you the weakest in. Then you want to talk to people and you want to find out what they say their actual operational problems are. Here's the problem that I have in my business. Here's the problem I have in my job function. And then you as the expert, and I think this is one of the challenges that Alex has if he's never worked for an end user, he doesn't know what manufacturers actually do. Consultants don't know what manufacturers actually do. If you've never worked on the plant floor, you have no idea how manufacturing actually operates. You know how it operates when you're standing there looking at the people monitoring a production line. But you don't understand all the other elements that go into For example, is safety ever really job one in a manufacturer? Very, very rarely. Production is job one. And anybody who's worked on the front line, whether you've worked for the most elite organizations in the world or whether you've worked for the mom and pop down the street, knows that production comes first and that people turn a blind eye to policies and procedures when nothing's going out the back door or out the front door. You have to understand the basic realities that manufacturers face. And the only way to understand what their problems are is to start with the conversation. That is the assessment. Okay? But here, this is the most important thing. And for any of you who watched that video, and I know that we're raising the profile, and I'm doing that for a reason. I actually, people asked the question, and I want to answer it. If one person asked, I probably would have answered it privately. But because we had so many people send me the link, okay, and it's like, hey, they're saying don't start with assessment, and I'm swearing up and down, you must start with an assessment. You want to fucking fail in your digital transformation initiative? That is at scale. Become a smart company, which I'll show you here in a second. Go ahead and try to fail as quickly as you can. And that's Alex's words, not mine, okay? Know what your digital strategy is. You don't do anything unless you have your digital strategy. 3-sentence statement, why do we want to be a digital company? Number 2, you approach every project as one part of a bigger whole. Alex and his team already do that. Number 3, make no assumptions about how data will be consumed. All data matters. Just because it doesn't matter at this moment doesn't mean it's not going to matter 5 years from now. Jeff Bezos laid the foundation for Amazon today in 2023, in 2002 with his famous email. Okay, we will not share any data manually, and we'll collect all data digitally, or you'll be fired starting tomorrow morning. Okay. Number 4, treat all producers and consumers of data as a node in an ecosystem. This goes to architecture and technology and minimum technical requirements. Number 5, build a technology stack, which, by the way, it looks like that's what Alex and Corso does. Don't build a wall on top of a couch. And number 6, and he mentioned this, you must remain agile. Here's the most important thing about digital transformation, gang. What you want today is a function of what you know today. Digital transformation is about becoming exponentially smarter as an organization. So it naturally follows if what I want is a function of what I know, what I want will change exponentially as I get smarter. And if you create technical debt, which, by the way, what Alex is proposing here creates technical debt because it doesn't start with the foundation. Minimum technical requirements, strategy, and architecture. It starts with failing as fast as you can. Okay? That being said, I actually like the video. That whole second half of the video I really like a lot, and I actually think it's super valuable. If I were in charge at Corso, I would say delete the video, keep the second half, don't do the call to action in the description, and just provide value to your audience, and you'll be golden. All right, I want to do one other thing real quick. Let me go to full screen. I want to show you one other slide to kind of drive home the point here. So for those of you who are asking the question, what is digital transformation? Okay, what is it? This is a slide I used when I gave a keynote. I gave a keynote address a couple of years ago, or actually I think it was last year. It was in supply chain, okay? This is digital transformation, okay? It happens in two giant steps. Achieving that holy grail, becoming, a smart business, achieving the holy grail of manufacturing happens in two big steps, okay? Becoming a smart business takes you 3 to 5 years. I mean, believe me, scale takes a long time. Okay, if you don't start with a common strategy, technology, and architecture, then you will hit critical mass when you try to scale. Okay, you will hit critical mass. Okay, the difference between being able to build a manufacturing execution system in one plant and being able to build it for an entire organization, scale across 40 facilities or 150 facilities all over the world, is strategy, technology, and architecture. Okay, technology and architecture drive minimum technical requirements. There was no conversation in that video about any of those things. And by the way, they're the most important elements. They're the most important elements. It's the reason digital transformation maturity assessment was created, so that you could get to strategy, technology, architecture, and MTR. They are literally the fucking deliverables. Also, where are you relative to other organizations? How do you know how much effort, how much money you need to put into your journey if you don't know how far behind you are? How do you know? And the only way to find out how far behind you are is to get a comparative score across those 10 Industry 4.0 pillars. And if my score is really low, say on infrastructure, or it's really low on strategy, or it's really low on network, so one of the network score, 1 to 5, what percentage of our business is on a common network, whether it's layered through VLANs or whether it's segmented? What percentage? How connected are we? Because becoming a smart business happens in the same steps. You connect, collect, and store. That's step 1. Step 2, you analyze and visualize. You can do this in a proof of concept, by the way. So I want to give Alex some credit here. He is doing this. Connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize. But he's doing it in a narrow sliver, right? So they can get it done in 2 weeks, and it's based on some common starter package with edge device that does all the object structuring for them. I mean, I don't know that for sure. I would just speculate based on an architect and what I do for a living. I suspect that's probably how it's being done. So connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize. Then what you do is you find patterns, you predict, you report, and you solve. Okay? When he talked about the scheduling piece, it's not the scheduler who finds that fucking pattern in the changeover. It is machine learning that does that. Okay? It's an algorithm that finds that problem. Otherwise, a data analyst has got to sit down and look at a massive amount of data and try to find trends and graphs. Okay? I can write a program that does that in the blink of an eye. I can write a skyline function. One of the guys who works at Corso knows what that means. And then step 2, once I'm a smart business, I'm plugging into a digital supply chain. I'm making products that get better after I buy them. I am connected to all of my total addressable market, not just the clients, not just the customers directly downstream from me. I'm connected digitally to the entire addressable market. I'm connected digitally to all the potential suppliers, not just the ones I have relationships with. That's digital transformation. Digital transformation is not a $10,000 proof of concept you do in 2 weeks and then fail and then learn. Yes, is there failure in digital transformation? Absolutely. Is there a lot of learning in digital transformation? Absolutely. But you can fail dumb or you can fail smart. You want to fail dumb, go in trying to fail. Okay? You want to fail smart? have a plan. Digital transformation maturity assessment's all about having a plan. It's about collecting that information from the people who have the actual problems. We say this all the time. That proof of concept needs to work like this. It needs to serve the digital strategy that comes from the leadership. It needs to be enabled by the leadership. It has to be built using the technology, the architecture, and it needs to meet the minimum technical requirements. It has to solve the problems, some of the problems that the organization knows about, preferably a really big one, and you need to solve problems they don't know about so that you can show them the art of the possible in addition to the, oh yeah, I knew we could do that. And then when they ask about more art of the possible, you build it on the common infrastructure. Scale, iterate, which I like Alex using that language. All right. This went a little longer than I had hoped. I thought I would be able to do it in 45 minutes. We'll treat this as a podcast. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share the video. For goodness sakes, if you're thinking about digital transformation, do me a favor. Learn what digital transformation is. Okay? Under no circumstances should you do anything without a strategy, without a technology selected, without an architecture, and without minimum technical requirements. The assessment phase is important. Should you go to McKinsey and spend $500,000? Absolutely not. Should you go to Deloitte and spend $500,000? Absolutely not. If you're spending $1 million a month on a McKinsey contract, you're a fucking idiot. Okay, I'm going to say it to you. You're a fucking idiot. Okay, you're burning your money. Okay? But if you start your digital transformation journey without knowing where you are, where you want to go, why, and how you're going to do it, you're also a fucking idiot. All right? Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.